Welcome to day 3, as Jeffrey said, to our 5-day clean eating challenge. It's been super exciting using all of the Natural Zing products and trying out their quality, which is super high of ingredients. And today is no exception. I get to use their amazing pine nuts in my pesto I'm gonna make. So this is a perfect time of year because I was at Trader Joe's yesterday and there's all this, they're selling the basil actually still growing and the parsley still growing. So it's a great time of year to start making these fresh pestos. And the zucchinis are coming into season. So I'm gonna show you today how to use your garden vegetables that you sometimes don't know what to do with. And this is a raw vegan recipe. So it's perfect for warm weather and for summertime. So what we wanna do first is you're gonna have to have some kind of tool that makes noodles. And if you don't, you can use a potato peeler or a vegetable peeler and just peel strips. But these are kind of fun and they're really cheap these days. You can even find them used a lot of times you'll find them in a thrift store. So this one is just one that makes different sizes of noodles. You just interchange this blade up here. You can go small or large with the noodles. It's called a Mueller, M-U-E-L-L-E-R. And I don't know, I like this one. I've used many over the years. It doesn't really matter, honestly. Just get anything that spiralizes your zucchini. The key to buying the zucchini is getting one that's straight. If you got one that's really curled, it's not gonna work. And then what you wanna do, I'm gonna move that so you guys can see my board, is just cut it as straight as you possibly can. And I'm gonna have to cut off a little bit because I know it won't fit. So save these, remember I said on day 1, freeze your zucchini and put it in your smoothie. Perfect thing to do. Even this little end, all that is the flour. You can freeze that. Now I got my nice straight zucchini. It's cut super straight. And I'm gonna put it in this little tool. It's so easy. You just put it in there. The teeth will take care of it. And then you just twist it in a circular motion. And you gotta give it some pressure. If you don't do enough pressure, it won't work as well. And I can see already that it's starting to go angular on me. If it starts slipping, just take it out and cut even sides again. But it looks like I'm gonna make it with this one. Looks like we made it. All right, and then that end is that's not gonna spiralize, so it's another great piece to freeze in your little Ziploc bag or on your cookie sheet. Okay, so now I've already done 2 other zucchinis ahead of time. This is like a little drawer, it's really fun, it pulls out. And I've got this bowl of zucchini already spiralized, and I don't know if you guys can see that if I do it close up, but they're already getting super sweaty. So I'm just gonna put this zucchini in, and I'm gonna do this visual because a lot of times people watching or listening are like, wait, did you add the salt? So I'm gonna pretend to add the salt, about a teaspoon, because the salt's already in there, and then that makes it sweat. And the reason you want your zucchini to sweat, and this has probably happened to you before if you've ever done spiralized zucchini. If you don't, then you pour your delicious sauce on and it starts to sweat and all this water is leaking all over the plate. It doesn't look appetizing and it dilutes your sauce a lot. So we're gonna just let this sweat while we make the pesto sauce, and then I'll come back and do a little salad spinner trick for you to show you guys the best technique. So trust me, I've been doing this for 20 years. I know the best technique for sweating zucchini and for how to make the best pasta. And a lot of people, for the kelp noodles, which I'm gonna show you next, have said, when they've come to my culinary academy, this one woman said, this made the whole course worth it, just learning how to soften your kelp noodles. And so I'm gonna do the kelp noodles next. And if you're not familiar with kelp noodles, these are Natural Zing carries these, and these are one of my favorite pastas. I don't eat any kind of, I don't eat the quinoa pasta or the corn pasta or all those, but crappy pastas they sell in boxes because they're packaged, they're manufactured, and they're inflammatory, and they're bloating, and anything with grains in it is not, especially if it's processed, is not gonna be your best friend. So kelp noodles are great because we need the iodine in kelp. We're not getting enough seaweed, especially in the United States as a nation, and that's causing immunity problems, it's causing hormone problems. You need your iodine. So kelp noodles are perfect. Natural Zing carries a couple sizes, but this is the family size bag, which is a lot for me because it's just me. But I'm just gonna show you my tricks for softening the kelp noodles. And the noodles come in kind of like a big bag and they're already in liquid, but I'm not worried about that liquid because I'm gonna rinse them with the water that I'm using. I've already got hot water. It doesn't need to be hot, it just needs to be warm. So I heated this up earlier. It is still a little bit hot, but really just warm tap water is fine. And then you're gonna pour this water over your noodles. Don't make it too hot because what'll happen is it'll probably like melt the noodles and they'll get too gummy. So this is a really big bag of it, so I'm gonna use a little extra. But just cover the noodles with hot or warm, well, with warm water. And then this is the trick, so watch closely, watch carefully. I've got baking soda, just household baking soda. Did you guys know that baking soda is super alkalizing? If you're feeling like an ache in your kidneys, or you're just feeling like, oh, I think I'm getting sick, take some baking soda, like a teaspoon in water, chug it down, and it alkalizes your body right away. It's a super cheap and easy trick. So what it does in this kelp noodle thing is it's a chemical reaction. So citrus, lemon juice particularly, and baking soda, when they get together, I don't know if you can see this. Can you guys see my bowl foaming? It's so hot because I should have let it cool down a little bit more, but I'm gonna use a spoon because it's too hot. But I'm just gonna let this sit for like no longer than 5 minutes. If you go longer than 5 minutes, then the noodles will start to, like I said, they're gonna start to get gummy and melty. But what'll happen, and I'll show you in a minute, is that the noodles will start, and you can see already, they go from crunchy, like if you've ever eaten just a plain kelp noodle out of the bag, it's crunchy, and I don't love that. Like for pasta, I want it to be soft, like a glass noodle. So the longer it sits, the more silky and smooth it gets. And if I don't feel like the chemical reaction is enough, like if it's not foaming enough, I can always add a little bit more baking soda or a little more lemon. But we're just gonna set this aside and let it do its thing for a few minutes. Trust the process, but also if it's not working, just add more baking soda and lemon. You can't get it wrong because you're gonna rinse it off in the end. You're not eating that baking soda, you're just using it to soften your noodles. Okay, so now let's move on to the fun part, our pesto. We're going to use, so you can use a food processor for this, or if you have one of these, excuse my glue there, my Vitamix cracked, so I'm using Gorilla Glue to keep it together. Never mind that, look at this side. So if you have a Vitamix and you have the wide one, this works like a food processor, so use that, but you can also just use a food processor. I like my pesto to be a little bit chunky, so if you use the tall skinny blender, it might get too liquefied, and I like a little bit of texture in there. So the first ingredient is our basil. And I'm just gonna cut it right off of the plant. And it'll keep growing, so that's great. Thank you, basil. I always thank my plants before I cut them. And I tell them it's gonna be okay. All right, so look at that, beautiful. That's about 2 cups, give or take. I mean, I don't think you can ever put too much basil in a pesto. It's just amazing. And then the next ingredient is some parsley, and this is my trick. So parsley with pesto, you will not taste the parsley very much. You'll taste the basil because the basil is so aromatic. But the parsley has a great trick of keeping the pesto greener, and it won't get brown like most pestos do. And a lot of people don't know that parsley is like almost like a preservative in your pesto. A couple cups is great. I didn't have that much, so I'm gonna actually also add some cilantro. So this is just basically like a fresh herb pesto. Honestly, you could use any garden herbs in this. If you do something like oregano, though, don't use very much because we know that's pretty overpowering. So I've got like a whole blender full of herbs now. And the next thing I'm gonna add is some garlic. Now raw garlic, like yesterday I mentioned, oh, I don't always love raw garlic, but you have to have raw garlic in a good pesto. So I wanna show you guys a little trick. I already did it with, well, actually I didn't do it with all of these. So the garlic has what's called I don't even know, a sprout. Sometimes it's green already. So I take that out, and all you do is cut it in half and use the tip of your knife to dig that sprout out. And the reason I do that is that's the part that can cause sleeplessness. Like if you eat garlic late at night, raw garlic, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but it's so stimulating that you can't sleep. It's also a lot of meditators won't eat garlic because of that reason. So if you take the sprout out, it's gonna actually make your pesto a lot better. Or any raw garlic you use. When you're cooking with it, it's not as important. But anyway, I've already done that with all the other ones, and I'm gonna crush it. Here's why. Have you ever been blending a dressing or a pesto or something, and you end up with all these garlic chunks because you just didn't get it blended enough? So since I'm not gonna fully blend this pesto, I wanna make sure that garlic, I do not wanna bite into a big chunk of raw garlic. That just doesn't sound fun to me. Okay, The next ingredient is our miso. I'm using chickpea miso instead of soy miso for anybody that has soy allergies or is just avoiding soy for whatever reason. Soy miso is actually like the least offensive soy product because it's fermented and it doesn't cause a lot of the reactions that like tofu causes. But anyway, I'm gonna use chickpea. I always use chickpea. It's actually more expensive. This is about $10 for a tub, but 2 tablespoons. And that's gonna give this pesto, this is the replacement for the Parmesan cheese, which is what we usually use in pesto, right? So that's gonna give it the cheesy Parmesan quality that we're used to in pesto. The next ingredient is our lemon juice. The recipe calls for about 3 tablespoons, which is 1 lemon. Whatever you do, I see a seed in there. Don't get the seeds in, and the reason is it gets very bitter. You know grapefruit seed extract, how bitter that is? Any citrus seed, if it's blended and left to sit, will go really bitter. I've had it happen in a dressing, so don't put the seeds in. Next is Biryani olive oil, which is from Natural Zing. They carry this. This is my favorite olive oil. It's unfiltered, and so it's green and kind of just milky looking, creamy looking, because they don't like process it. It's cold pressed, which is super important with oils, and you can see it comes in a dark bottle. So Biryani is these brothers in Sacramento, and they're amazing. They're Italian guys. Try out the Biryani olive oil. So we're gonna do half a cup of that, and that's gonna give it its fatty, rich, you know, pesto-y quality. And then the last ingredient is 1 cup of some kind of nut. I'm gonna use pine nuts, Natural Zing's pine nuts today. You could also use walnuts. Yesterday I showed you how to soak and dehydrate your pumpkin seeds. You'd want them to be dehydrated ahead of time because if they're wet, the pesto just isn't gonna be as good a quality. It's just something about having dry nuts going in there. You could use walnuts that are soaked and dehydrated. That's one of my favorite pestos is walnut pesto. So it doesn't have to be pine nuts because I know pine nuts are more expensive, but for a decadent treat, why not use some pine nuts? I'm gonna save just a little bit of these to put on the top of my pesto for decoration. So always remember that, like, ooh, how do I wanna decorate this? What do I want it to look like? So now, like, there's no water in there, just FYI. This is not a salad dressing, it's a sauce, it's a pesto. So now what I'm gonna do is just start on low and let it kind of slowly just process. It's going really easily. To blend it. As you saw, I don't know if you noticed, but I kept it on low. For this one, it's more like a food processor. If you go on high, it just starts to do that high-pitched squeal you heard, like, nee. You want it low, and it's looking really good. It's kind of chunky. So for me, I like the chunks of pine nuts in there. I think it's more interesting, but you do what you want. If you want it to be a completely liquefied sauce, that's fine too. I'm gonna set this aside for a minute, and we're gonna go ahead and go back to our noodles. So now I'm gonna look at these zucchini noodles, and they look like they've gotten all their water sweated out. They're super, I don't know if you can see that, but there's a lot of water in the bottom. So my trick, if you don't have a salad spinner, you can just use like a dish towel, like a tea towel, something absorbable. But my trick is to use a salad spinner to get all that sweat off the zucchini. And get yourself a good quality, this is from Progressive, but get yourself a quality salad spinner. It makes all the difference. This one's kind of a small size one, which I use a lot for herbs when I wash them. I have a bigger one for like when I'm doing a whole head of lettuce, but anyway, you just keep doing that. Feels like I'm starting a lawnmower. I remember those days when I was a kid, like the lawnmower won't start. But now I have an electric one. All right, so look at all that liquid. That would have been sweated out into your pasta. No good. Like your plate would just be literally oozing water. So now I've got a nice dry pasta. It's dry-ish. I could probably, I'm so particular, I could probably dry it a little bit more, but I'm not gonna. And now I'm gonna put it in a bowl, a clear bowl so you guys can see, and I'm gonna show you how I toss it. But let me put a few of these kelp noodles in with it. So this is kind of like a kelp noodle slash zucchini noodle combo. Now these are nice and soft. The next key, and this is good for you guys to know if you've already been doing this, and you're like, oh, I know what I'm doing. Do not rinse this in hot water. Rinse it in cold. If you rinse it in hot, it's just going to be a gluey blob. Like any pasta, the cooler the water, the better. So, excuse me while I just rinse this in cold water really quick. Just swish it around. And then I'm just going to put it back on this bowl and let it drain and bring it back over. And then I'm just going to take, I'm not going to use this whole bag. You can save these in your fridge now that they're prepared. I've saved them for up to 2 weeks, just in a like a glass Tupperware. I don't think it's called Tupperware, but glass container. And it'll keep, and you can just throw this on your salads. You could put it anytime you have a sauce, like with that ranch dressing, it'd be great. I'm going to chop it just a little bit because they're so long. And then let's just mix that in with the zucchini. It's really pretty. It looks really good. Can you guys see that? Yes. Okay, and now we'll add some pesto. And I'm just going to eyeball it, probably like a half a cup. You don't want to do too much because it is quite salty. Oh, actually, I did forget that ingredient. So your recipe calls, for those of you guys on Facebook Live that don't have the recipe in front of you, 1.5 teaspoons of this pink salt, which is right here, the Himalayan pink salt crystals. I did forget to add that into the pesto, so I'll do that in a minute, but don't forget to add your salt. But I don't want to do too much pesto because it is quite rich. Like you saw all that olive oil, pine nuts, and salt going in, so you don't want to overpower it. But then again, just like I did yesterday with the big salad, I like to use a big bowl and get it really well mixed. Because the problem I see a lot with people, like when they're doing culinary school with me live, is that they're not using a big enough bowl to try and get something and it's falling out the top, and it's happened to me before too. So go big with your bowls, people. A lot of these bowls, metal bowls and glass bowls I've gotten at thrift stores. Like there's so much good stuff at thrift stores. You don't have to buy new. Save our environment and stop buying brand new things. Okay, so now let's find a pretty bowl that we want to serve this in, or a plate. I guess I'll use, this is actually one of my favorite bowls from a festival I went to. It's the perfect size salad plate and dish, and it has a little saying in it. In this food, I see clearly the presence of the entire universe supporting my existence. And that's what's going into your food. The universe supports my existence. Okay, so here we go. We're going to put this into the bowl. Now, I think this is enough for 2 people right here, man. Unless you're like, you just worked out, you're Jeff and you just worked out and you're starving and you're like, I need a big meal. But it's up to you. I mean, I could definitely eat all this when I'm hungry. All right, so there we go. Put the pesto in there, and then for the final touch, because it looks good, but it could use a little extra touch, Parmesan, which Natural Zing also sells, or you could just use nutritional yeast flakes if you don't have Parmesan. Just a little sprinkle on top. This has also macadamia nuts in it, so you could just sprinkle a little bit of that. And then more pine nuts, just for looks. And then how about some chopped red bell peppers, which I also used yesterday in my salad. Just to give it, you could honestly cherry tomatoes would be amazing on there too. So there we go. We've got this beautiful pesto dish ready for consumption. I might blend it today for my smoothie, for my soup. So what do you guys think? Jeff, anything you would add to this or do differently?
That was awesome. Did you use any hemp seeds in that?
I didn't. The recipe called for hemp seeds, but I decided to go with the pine nuts because I had a bag from you guys. And why not? But yeah, you could use hemp seeds as well.
Traditional pesto has like Parmesan cheese or Romano, so I think the miso gives it that kind of cheesy flavor.
Exactly.
And of course, if you put the nutritional yeast on there, but the hemp seed probably would do that too.
Yeah, hemp seeds you could sprinkle on the top. And even I was thinking yesterday you mentioned, or Helen mentioned, putting protein powder, hemp protein into your salad, on your salad. You could probably sprinkle some hemp protein powder on top of this, and that would probably be really good too. Like there's a lot of, you could just put chopped walnuts on there, chopped almonds. I like crunch on things.
Yeah, I have a friend that does protein powders on steamed vegetables too. They make steamed vegetables. So that goes along with the salad. I meant to mention that.
Oh yeah, like a steamed broccoli and cauliflower and things on top. That would be great. I have some questions coming through on Facebook Live. Someone asked if I cook. So if you didn't see it from the start, you can go back and rewatch this. I'll post it on Facebook. I think Kareen asked this. Do you cook the zucchini noodles first or do you keep them raw? I did keep them raw and I put salt on and sweated the water out. But you could cook them. You could totally cook them in a skillet with some, you know, a little bit of olive oil and do it that way too. Have you guys ever cooked your noodles, your zucchini noodles, Jeff?
I have never cooked the kelp noodles.
Or the zucchini ones?
If you eat them right out of the bag, they're very crunchy.
Yeah.
Normally, I would make a dish and then let it sit overnight in the fridge or something, and it has like salt or something in there.
Yeah, that'll break it down too.
Show you or something.
Yeah. He's saying that on Facebook Live, because they can't hear you, he's saying that he sometimes will just make the dish and let it sit overnight to soften the kelp noodles. But the trick I showed you guys of salting and or lemon and baking soda will make them like ready to eat right away. But either way is good.
Yeah, because sometimes I would have it in my fridge for like a week, and they're really good after a week of sitting.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Definitely. Definitely good after a week of sitting. This one will last, just so, since we're talking about it, this will last for probably, since I already did the sauce and everything on it, probably good for 2 days. But the fresher the better, honestly, with this particular dish because of the zucchini. But I've been known to eat raw zucchini pasta like 2 or 3 days later.
Another comment, yeah, when you blend the sauce in the high-powered blender, you have to be careful because if you can't do it like smoothie.
Yeah, you can't just
air. Even like salsa or a pesto, it'll get all foamy.
It'll get foamy and it'll go brown faster. Oh, and I did have one more trick with the pesto, which is once you put it in your glass jar, you can coat it with a little layer of olive oil to keep it from turning brown. That's a really good trick. And just store it in like a mason jar, like something like this. And then on the top, put a little bit of olive oil.
Yeah, the basil will oxidize when it gets in touch with air.
Yeah, basil tends to do that. Yeah. Yeah.
I like your zucchini noodle maker. I haven't seen one that stands up like that, and I like the container that catches the noodle.
Yeah, right? Yeah, they keep coming out with new versions of these zucchini spiralizers. Thank God for the keto community because, you know, with the raw foodists, there wasn't enough of us to keep these guys in business. But now that all the keto people are like eating zucchini pasta instead of regular noodles, there's all these creations of them coming out. Even Cuisinart has one now.
Yeah, and I see that in stores too. You can get them pre-made.
Oh yeah, like I know Whole Foods, you can just buy them like pre-made zucchini noodles with a little cellophane on them. Yeah, so I've done that before when I've been traveling, which is great.
Yeah, there's other vegetables too. I think I see sweet potato sometimes.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. You could do any vegetable for this, but we like zucchini because, or summer squash, because of the softness and the texture is more like real pasta. Whereas like carrots are going to be, or beets are going to be a lot more chewy. That's why I salt them too, but I really prefer the zucchini over anything else.
Well, I wish I was there with you so I could eat.
Yeah, you could eat it. It does smell really good. I can smell this garlic aroma coming off and the basil.
It's lunchtime.
Yeah. So tomorrow, just to give you guys a heads up, tomorrow I'm teaching a really quick raw granola, and it's like keto, so it's low. When I say keto for plant-based, it just means it's low carb. There's not like a ton of dates or things like that in it. So tomorrow is a quick and easy granola that you can keep in your cupboard or travel with and eat anytime with almond milk that I showed you on day one. So if you didn't get to see day one, go back and watch that. I'm going to be posting that on my YouTube channel as well, and we got it posted on Facebook. We're going to post it in all of our locations.
So thank you so much, Elaina. And
Yeah.
let me just review the 2 top tips for easy ways to eat clean. One would
See you
be
guys
green